sitting over here, and I'm fucking thinking, and I had a flash of my mind. Here you are, you can't get your money from Larry, and you're not going to. I hate to fucking disillusion you. This cocksucker, what kind of a fucking guy? He couldn't wait for John to die to take the car.
So here's the proof, huh? Give the story because it's better than the truth, huh? Allegories will keep between me and you, huh? We get coins, never scraps. See this a Bitcoin getting cat. So here's the proof, huh? Give the story because it's better than the truth, huh? Allegories will keep between me and you, huh? We get coins, never scraps. See this a Bitcoin getting cat. So join, started federal, grabbed a Columbo, see proof of work, I made it legible. Move out to cyber, was keeping crimes off of the web for you. Started a special group, yeah, I went private. Fell in love with Bitcoin and started mining. That's when I started shining. Getting green, dropping gems. Rocking the comic club, got them sent. They laugh, popping limbs. Give them life, here's the boost. Gotta put in the work, here's the proof. So here's the proof, huh? Give the story because it's better than the truth, huh? Allegories will keep between me and you, huh? We get coins, never scraps. See this a Bitcoin getting cash. So here's the proof, huh? Give the story because it's better than the truth.
No more talking. Listen, I don't think now, bitch. Don't fucking drug dealer next time. Please, kill me, please. Oh, you worried about them now? Don't you kill me?
It's like the voice of God there for a minute. It's like, where is he? he's just going to record you two guys in a room. He's not going to show up. It's a social experiment. What's going on, guys? Welcome back.
How are you, sir? Thanks for having me. I don't know how Patrick feels, but I appreciate being here.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Thank you for coming back. Pat, thanks for returning. Sorry for the technical difficulties. You might hear it in our voices. Those of you listening or watching, we've had about 2 hours of issues with Restream. Restream went down for 2 hours. Pushed us way back.
Good plug for them.
It really is. I'm not using their software now, but honestly, I think I'm going to go over to the boneyard, as I've been calling it, to the StreamYard, because Shuli is telling me he's never had these issues, and this is, not a good sign when on your first episode you have to wait 2 hours and keep your guests waiting. We actually lost a guest. We had another guest who was going to join us, active FBI employee Ray Epps. He was going to join us. But
he got called away to some emergency of national security or something. I don't know. I don't buy it.
Security or some building they're looking to enter, and they needed someone to work up the crowd.
I've used that excuse, and I'm not even in the FBI, so I don't buy it.
Well, we lost them. It wasn't Ray Epps, but it was someone else better than Ray Epps. So I'm hoping he could still join us at some point. But anyway, where we left off on our cliffhanger was we were talking a little bit about the process of getting into the bureau and the waiting and the polygraph and the field fitness test. And I think we left off where we're actually at the academy. We got you get assigned a suite mate, which is like a roommate, and you share a bathroom with another couple, another two dudes on the other side. So you have one bathroom that you have to share, and it's just like a little dormitory room. But this was 2004, so we didn't have they didn't have any kind of Wi-Fi. We always joked once we got there, you learned it was, the FBI was yesterday's technology tomorrow was the slogan for the bureau. I mean, I'm talking we had cell phones in 2004, but none of them worked in the dorms. I don't even know if I had one. I know I definitely had one. It just didn't work. So you had a landline, and then you had no internet access. You had to walk about 30 minutes to get to a lab where there was internet access.
Well, I mean, that's one way to make sure that you're focused on the task that you need to be focused on, right?
Yeah, they made no effort to entertain us. We lived in a dormitory. Like, I lived in dorms in college, and you had a fucking pool table. Dude, they made no effort. It was like whatever you brought on your back was your entertainment. So I lived 3,000 miles away, so I didn't bring shit. And I get there, and I'm like, all I have is a portable DVD player. That was about it.
Yeah,
but that's bullshit because, like you said, normally someone would say, well, then bring your stuff. The problem is you're going into the FBI Academy. I assumed everything I brought into that building was going to get searched. Like I remember deleting porn off my laptop, which is painful.
Yeah.
As I was like, you know what? I'm bringing a laptop, and what if they just take it and say we need to look through your stuff? I need them stumbling across 4 gigs of bukkake videos. So I was just deleting shit
Yeah.
before I got there. And then I got there and I said, man, I wish I had those bukkake videos because
I'm sure you would appreciate that too.
Yeah, you're like the kid who goes to fat camp and has a jacket full of snacks. Like it's like you can't just bring one thing of Rolos and just I mean, 3
no.
or 4 videos that you like, you can't just bring those in there. You got to delete gigs
Yeah.
worth of shit.
Well, later on, I smuggled it back in because then you realize they were
Attaboy. Don't let the
Yeah.
government stop
No.
you from your
No.
clearly sick obsession. Good for
It
you.
was we had portable DVD players that were like high value. If someone had a little portable DVD player that you could throw in, like, a lot of guys were watching 24. I was watching Family Guy, and that would get passed around like cigarettes in a prison. But
Sure.
you didn't have access to anything else. And to go on the internet, I'd have to walk. We'd walk. I mean,
You got to jerk off in a whole nother building, whole nother
oh
wing.
yeah, that's the other thing. Like you're so isolated around. I mean, there are women in your class, but we observed this phenomenon, which was well, that's the thing. They didn't see anything first, and then what would happen is you'd realize when you first got there, you'd look around and you'd be like, all right, let's say there's 10 women in your class, and you'd say, she's like a 5, that's like maybe a 3, and that's not like a 2. But then by week 10, that 2 becomes an 8. Like you're so starved for women, you're suddenly you go, man, did you see what's her face? Like, man, I don't know, that looked like a fruit bowl in her pants, but it looked good. Like, it was
I mean, me personally, I would bang the DVD player before I, fall victim to a 2. You know what I mean? But that's just me. I'm picky like that.
But in your eyes, it's not a 2 anymore. I'm swear to you.
The 2 gradually climbs up that
2 and 8
ladder.
I mean,
Vinny was a 6.
Yeah, even me with my my feminine physique. I think I was moving up the ranks for a lot of dudes in that class because it was getting desperate. Like when you're that far,
it goes any longer, we're gonna have problems.
Yeah. Well, this is what happens when you take away the people's Wi-Fi.
Yeah. They have it now, from what I understand. So you end up, you go to your class. Your routine is like you go to class. You'll do like courses on legal. There's some like a lot of courses on interrogation techniques, source handling, and then you'll go to like firearms and you'll shoot, fucking MP5 machine gun for 2 hours straight, which is awesome. They'll train you on the Glock. We were using Glock 23s at the time, which are 40 caliber Glocks. They held 15 in the magazine. I think there was another in the chamber for a total of 16. They were giant hand cannons. These fucking things were monsters. A lot of the smaller dudes and women in the class would actually downgrade to a 9mm if they like couldn't qualify on this real gun.
Any incidences at the range that you guys remember?
No, they did. The class before, someone shot their ass off. So we had ultra strict. After an accidental discharge, everyone puckers up and the rules get really strict. And so what it was for that person was like a drawstring. They were drawing from the holster, and they were wearing a jacket that had a little tassel or drawstring, and that got stuck in the trigger guard, and actually yanked the trigger guard and shot him in the ass. So when we got there, they like collected all of our rain gear and like burned it out in the yard. They were like, no one's wearing rain gear. I was like, oh, cool. It's 20 degrees out. Cause we went in September, right? It was September. And so it got cold.
End of September, beginning of October. It was fucking cold.
It got cold, especially from you. You're from California. It must have been like,
I had to buy clothes when I got there. I didn't even know what cold wind was until we go up to Georgetown one time. I'm like, fuck this.
Yeah.
Who lives here?
Yeah.
And you guys all took me to Banana Republic. This is what you get. You get the big wool jacket. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's what you do. But no, I didn't have gear for that. But yeah, they 4 weeks before us, there was the guy that had because when you're done shooting, you go in this room, you have to clean off all your shit, your gun. But there's supposed to be procedures in place to make sure your gun has 0 bullets in it.
Correct.
Glock is one of the weapons that will fire without a magazine in it. So that's what happened. He set it on the bench, and you have to pull the trigger to be able to take the slide off, take it apart, and it fired down the bench and hit somebody.
Wow.
And so they were over the top anal about our stuff. And then the other guy a couple weeks before us did that and we shot himself in the ass. So yeah, they
I
locked us.
forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
bad. Shot the dude, I think it shot him like in the bicep because he was working on his gun. It shot down the
Ooh.
line and it hit him right in the arm.
He got like that guy from Rittenhouse. He got the Rittenhouse treatment. This is a video. So I had access to a camcorder, and foolishly they gave me a camcorder and they allowed me to record like shit at Quantico, which I think was the first time ever that they allowed this. And I guess probably right about now they're regretting it. But
Yeah.
I recorded a bunch of shit from our class and made a whole 2 DVD collection. It was like Tupac's, Machiavelli, All Eyes on Me double album. And I dropped that at the end of the Quantico, and we had a big showing in a theater where we played both DVDs. But I taped all sorts of stuff that you could never really get.
Pause that, Vin, for a second.
Yeah,
this is
part of the. Yeah, this is part of the.
So this is our super elaborate how you check in and check out system. So when we start talking about things like curfew and whatnot, you're supposed to, when you come in, it's an honor system, write in what time you got in. That's kind of, I hated that area. I was not good in that area. I kept
You were
writing.
supposed to sign in and out anytime you left the building for any reason. And
they would check it to make sure you were in on time for us that got restriction, which not everybody was, but I was on restriction the whole time. I was on curfew the whole time.
Yeah, so that kind of leads into to the whole issue. So you have a physical fitness test in the field that you have to pass, and it's a series of you have to do a certain amount of push-ups, sit-ups, shuttle run, or sprint, 2-mile run, some other stuff, all within like a certain period of time. It's actually pretty difficult to be honest. At least for me it was, and I know for a lot of other people. You pass that, you pass the polygraph, you pass the background where they go out and talk to your neighbors when you were 15, and they get to tell the story about the time you pissed off your front porch and they called your parents, and you get through all of that, and now you're there and they test you again. Like day 3, you take a physical fitness test again. So 50-something% of our class failed. We actually set the record for most failures in FBI history. Now, that sounds horrible, except if I could show you a picture of the class, you'd be like, how is it possible these people failed the tests? Well, this is when the wheels start to turn, that sometimes sometimes the tail wags the dog with the federal government. What you realize is that everybody was failing on the same event. It was push-ups. Like I had maybe like a 7 push-up buffer. I had to do 30. I could do 37, but conveniently I did 29. Mm-hmm. And when you talk to a lot of other people, they're like 28, 27, 29. Some people were like, I could bang out 75 push-ups, but they stopped me because I was going too fast, or because my elbows weren't parallel to my shoulders. And so they didn't tell me until I was done. When I thought I did 70, they're like 28. And you're like, 28, I did 70. And they're like, guess what you get? Remedial PT. And then you get to remedial PT and you realize that there's like 15 instructors that they hired for this sole purpose of giving you remedial physical
of getting you in better shape, basically. Yeah.
So you have to justify their existence. How? If there's 5 people in that class and there's 15 instructors, let's say, that doesn't work. So I show up for remedial PT and I'm in there with what looks like bodybuilders and professional athletes. And there's like 100 of us. And it's like 5 a.m. when they wake you up to go do this. And I'm like, oh, and that's when the wheels started turning. I'm like, oh, I get it. This is the tail wagging the dog. Like, we didn't really fail. It was that you had these allotment of people and you needed to justify their existence, which is kind of a theme that permeates through the entire federal government, by the way. And that, so I fail. Pat, what was your deal on your first test?
Push-ups. You had to get, so the way it was is you have 4 categories. You had to get at least 1 point in every category, a total of 12 to pass. I had 16 points total, but because I had 0 in push-ups, I go to remedial PT, which one thing to point out about PT, your classes start at 8 a.m., right? So if you've passed your PT test, you got to sleep in, go to breakfast, you're at class by 8. We, 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, had to go to a whole extra physical fitness from 6 to 7. Then they gave us an hour to shower and maybe get some food before class started. So we had like a whole separate academy than everybody else. And then during the day, sometimes during your class in the middle, we might have, defensive tactics or wrestling or boxing where you're already gassed from the morning.
You're totally smoked.
And it was like 2 separate academies, which I brought that up in my little exit interview, and they pretty much told me to kiss off. But it was boring.
Yeah, the exit interview. We'll get to that.
Oh, yeah.
So the only one who passes out of our friends at that point is the guy who was going to join us today. He passed. He was a personal trainer as a side gig before he got to the bureau. So
he was cheating.
Yeah, he cheated. He was fine. He was like me and legal, right? Like it was, he could do it like with one arm time behind his back. And 2 of our other friends failed, and including my roommate and another good friend of ours. So the majority of us failed, and so we're in this power PT. That's what they call that, I think, power PT.
Yep.
And there's restrictions. You cannot go out past a certain time. You can't leave campus except for certain days, I think it was, and for only a certain amount of time. And so that sucks, especially as a grown adult, because sometimes if you want to leave campus, you got to constantly looking at your watch. And that's where things start to really go bad, because I think Pat and I had developed somewhat of a reputation in class. And I we were both kind of class clowns, and, and so people were looking at us a little bit more closely. And then the second round of physical fitness exam comes around like 4 weeks later, and I pass it. Pat fails it, right, Pat?
Yeah.
Yeah. And our other friend fails it, and our other friend fails it. So we want to celebrate, but half of our group can't really go out to celebrate because of curfew. So we make an arrangement. And I said, hey, we're going to go out, and we're going to be back by, I don't know, what time was it, Pat?
Midnight. You had to be back by midnight.
It was like a gremlin.
Fucking 16-year-old.
So if you, Pat, I don't even remember if you want to talk about what we did, if you remember.
Well, we wanted that. I think that was the night. So here's what's funny though. When I first get there, I find kind of the party guys. So I find, like, remember Ryan, who's my suite mate, and the dude from Texas. Dude, they went out every weekend. They just went out balling and, finding chicks. And I would go, but I would always be back by midnight. And then I get busted. I missed curfew one time because they noticed I didn't write in a time. They saw my time out, no time in. So they gave me she's like, so what time did you get in? I go, oh, it was definitely before midnight. I just forgot to write it down. So they kind of gave me a pass on that one. So she's like, you keep doing this, you're going to be in trouble. So then I go, I need to play it safe. So I go, speak of the devil. So I need to play it safe and go and just hang out like with guys that like to entertain themselves at the dorm, which was Vinny and Dave and our group. We could get along by watching movies and not have to leave campus. I didn't have a fucking car, so it's not like there was no Uber. It's not like I could leave anyway. So I'm like, I'll play it safe. That night we decided to celebrate. We go up, I think we went up into Georgetown.
Yep.
Playing pool and going up, and it was one of our buddies' old stomping grounds. He went to Georgetown, so we knew where to go. It was fun as shit. We had a blast. It was like a Friday night. Then on the way home, we're like, oh, fuck it, everyone's hungry. So we stopped at some fucking stupid diner where I think it was Vinny that ended up telling people that he was a porn producer.
Oh, yeah.
Might as well be.
We ended up at like an IHOP.
Yeah. If you're telling them you're a porn producer, and they're like, yep. And they were fucking hook, line, and sinker. And then when we get back, I already know the routine. I can't write the shit down. So I'm like, hey, take us to the back by where our dorm is. Drop us off there. We'll punch in from the back door and just go straight to the room and just not write anything down.
And what time was this around now?
Like close to 1. So we missed our time. There's 3 of us, though, that all had to be back by midnight. So I corrupted everybody and keeping them out past midnight because I'd done it several times.
We had been drinking, and I remember, no, it wasn't just you. So I was allowed to be out and Dave was allowed to be out. But the other 2 guys, if you knew them, were very obviously, like most of the people, they're very, very straight-laced. But when the alcoholics start, some nights you just go out and everything clicks, Shuli. Like the buzz is good, the vibe is good.
Absolutely.
Everywhere we went was fun, and people were
fun. Like I said, we ended up at that diner or whatever, and it was like a table full of these girls that were like drunk, but then really fun drunk. And then they came over and they were buying my story about being apparently a porn producer, which I don't remember. And they were just, Pat and I were cracking them up all night. So we were having a blast. And then we went to get food. I think we got Dave to eat French fries. He hadn't had French fries in like 4 years. So like it was a big moment for the personal trainer guy to actually eat French fries and I hadn't had it in like 4 months, but Dave literally hadn't had it in years. And he got very, very sick, I remember, after that. So it was one of those nights that was probably better for our mental health to actually be out. I know that sounds like a cop out, but considering the stress and pressures we were all under, because that whole time you're there, it's not fun. I wish I would have been able to enjoy it more. And I think it's like everything in life. And I would say this to everyone, understanding that this is very hard to do, but there are chapters of your life that you stress out about that usually work out. And then in hindsight, you go back and in your head, you think, I wish I could go back and actually enjoy that. And whether it's school or things like the FBI Academy, you're so worried about not graduating. You're so worried. So much of this is riding. So much of what you want for most of us is riding on that your every moment is like, you're just tense. You're just not enjoying yourself. And now I look back and say, man, I'd love to go back. In fact, they have what's called the National Academy that's there, which is a bunch of cops from police departments around the world as a reward. Like they apply and whatever basis, whatever criteria, they're sent to the FBI Academy to train for like X amount of weeks, and they're loving life.
It's like a vacation for them.
Yeah. There's just dudes with mustaches running around the FBI Academy, fucking having keggers in the woods behind the base. Meanwhile, you're sitting there in your room going, I think I'm going to get fired tomorrow.
Right.
Is a totally different.
Well,
I was so young.
they have, so believe it or not, there's a bar at the academy. There's a thing called the boardroom. It's about as basic as you could get. They have draft beer and like popcorn and shit. But of course, every night the cops were up there. Every fucking night. So what I would do is I'd be like,
heard it in the video right there.
I would go up there and I'd be like sitting there shooting the shit with the cops every night so I could drink beer and I'd still get back to my room. I wasn't breaking curfew. I could stay up there as long as I want. I'm still on campus. Well, needless to say, when I ended up getting in front of our fearless leader, she knew every night that I was in the boardroom. She listed them off every single night.
Of course, because the old guys were complaining you were drinking all their fucking beer, probably. That's
Dude,
why.
They're telling me, they're like, fuck, man. You know, they're typical cops. Are like, dude, you just need to go be a cop and do real police work. This shit's bullshit.
Yeah.
They're like
that's bullshit.
They were cool as hell. I have a bunch of
They're like, you got to sign in? What? What the fuck is that? Dude?
Yeah,
like on a clipboard, dude? What?
Yeah.
Like, I'm bagging my source and it's okay. Like that. Yeah, they have totally different rules than we had, and it was obvious from the way they behaved in the academy. They wore green shirts, we wore blue shirts, so you could very easily see. Right. There was that one dude from like Pakistan who like was like a fucking spy. Remember that? I don't know if you were there for that. Fucking guy from Pakistan. He ends up going to the lab, and they really restrict when you're a trainee, like what you have access to. But there are some classified systems in the lab area there were at the time. The Pakistani cop gets busted trying to like pull data off the it was a big fucking deal. They were like, we caught a guy, we think he's a fucking spy I'm like, of course he's a spy. I'm like, you're inviting these cops, these local cops and the minute their precinct finds out, they're like, you know what you're gonna do? You're gonna go into their database and start looking up fucking what the Osama bin Laden file says. And so he got busted, and he had some lame excuse, and they just like they just sent them kind of home. But
yeah, you're letting cops from Pakistan in. You're not looking into guys who want to fly but not land, and you're letting some creepy goddamn cadet walk around with an 8mm camera filming every fucking spot of this goddamn school. What the hell? Is nobody using their goddamn head at the FBI? Like, this is
priorities.
Listen, I'm a persuasive motherfucker when I want to be, so I think I'll take credit for that.
How many dirty looks did you get when you were walking around with that camera?
I got a lot of people saying, "Are you allowed to do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, to prove their class counselors, our class administrator."
You should have been like, "What are you, a cop? Mind your business. Shut up."
What do you think? I'm going to put it on some kind of podcast 20 years from now?
Are you allowed to do that? Are you allowed to do this right now? Interrupt this film? I don't think so.
Great, I got to do this whole shot over again. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, way to go, dude. You just cost me 20 grand one day.
So we come in, and then Pat tells us to go through the back, or not tells us, asks us. I don't even remember that part, but it sounds right.
Well, we have been using that loophole with the party guys, so I corrupted you fucks. There's a back parking lot that we can say there was no parking, so we parked in the back, and we come in, and it's so far from where that stupid little desk is at the front that it was like, oh, what's the point? I'm just gonna go to bed. That way I can have plausible deniability in what actual time it was. I'm like, ooh, close to midnight is right around there. Except they have a log of when that door is opened and when it's closed. So they knew fucking exactly when we walked in. Don't try to outsmart the FBI. Rule number one. When I
yeah. So this I fault Pat. This was a fairly obvious assumption on my part that the FBI was watching everything we were doing, including when we badged in and badged out. Apparently, Pat thought that he could just badge in a door and that people who had it in for him weren't going to take the time to go back to work.
I had someone open it from the inside. So I had someone, I called, I think it was Ryan. He came and opened the door from the inside. I'm like, that way there's no badge.
Yeah.
No, it's when the door is open and closed, badge or not.
It logged that.
Once we said that we went through the back door, she's like, well, I got it right here. But I didn't know that at the time. Typical FBI. They had all the information way before they ever talked to me.
That reminds me of when when I was dealing blackjack in Vegas with my buddy, who was my weed dealer. We got sent to go take a random drug test, and in Vegas it's all hair tests, which go back a long way. So my buddy says, this is back when I had hair. My buddy says, I know this stylist. She'll strip, bleach, kill all the chemicals in our hair. It's $100. My buddy did it. He passed his test. We'll go do that tomorrow, and then we take the test the following day. I said, let's do it, man. We leave work. We go to this woman's salon. She does the whole thing. I go home, go to bed, wake up the next morning to go take the test, and my hair is like eggplant colored, like golden.
I was say, don't they know you look like Pete Davidson at this point? You got
I look like one of the Golden Girls. Yeah. It's like old lady, light purple, pinkish, and I'm like. And I'm like, fuck it, I gotta go, And I go to the clinic, and I'm sitting across from this woman, and I'm sitting here bullshitting her, I've got the charm going the whole time I'm talking to her. She can't take her eyes off my hair, right? She keeps staring at my and then finally she's like, all right, you ready? And I'm like, yep. And I lean in, and she pulls it from my arm. She doesn't even take it from my
Oh, I thought you were gonna say a pew because of course they're
and I just remember the feeling. I wish I could have seen the look on my face, but the feeling, that stoner moment of like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
I have hair other places. My bad.
Yeah. So your story of like, just open the door from the inside, no one will ever. It reminded me of
crime. They'll never be able to figure this out.
I'm sitting there. This woman sits there 8 hours a day across from idiots like me, trying to bullshit her that they don't smoke pot, and it's like, whatever, dude. Just let me pull this hair out of your arm. They show up like swimmers in the Olympics, not a hair on them,
Yeah, there's no way. Like they're like that was easy. If that was the way you could foil them, that's the thing.
The hair from the arm though was like such a fuck. It was just like, boom, here you go, dummy.
Yeah. I hope you enjoy your dumb hair.
Yeah.
For the next 2 months.
By the way, 2 days later, my pit boss walks over. This big fat dude. He used to smoke a cigarette. The cigarette would be on the inside of his fingers, so he would cover his whole mouth like that. Yeah. I'll never forget. He comes up to me and he goes, "You failed your drug test. You're fired. Go clean out your locker."
Oh shit!
And I go, "We have lockers?" And he goes, "Get the fuck off my floor."
When did this happen? We had lockers. I've been fucking using a backpack this entire time.
I think that's where your brain went. We have lockers. That's not the point. You're fucking fired. Beat it.
I put my cummerbund in my locker and walked off.
Oh, sad.
Well, no, that was the moment for me where I remember I parked on top of the Rio parking garage, and I'm overlooking the Strip, and I'm overlooking the west side of Vegas where I lived with my folks at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing stand-up a little bit, and that's when I was like, that's the last job I'm working in a casino unless it's doing stand-up. And I'm like, I'm doing stand-up full-time. Fuck all these jobs. Fuck this industry out here. I don't want to be a part of it. Dealing blackjack, I met the bottom of the barrel of humanity.
Yeah. You're like, this guy. He's a total addict. This guy's a total degenerate.
Dude, there was a guy who was a cab driver. His mom died, left him a trust fund. Instead of doing something with it, investing it, saving it, he would come in, he would play two hands by himself. He'd shut a table down.
Yeah.
and he'd play 2 hands, 2 grand each hand, each spot. And it's just like you're watching this and you're like, he's done in a month.
Yeah.
He's going through everything. And and then you're working around people like that too, where it's an industry where you get your tips from the night before, cash in hand that next
Oh,
day.
so they
So it's
gamble.
like there's people that don't even make it out the door. They put the
Blow it
money
all.
right back into the casino that paid them.
Oh,
It's
I bet.
wild. Yeah.
They
So
love it. They're probably looking to hire people like that.
of course they don't care.
They're literally not paying them for work.
That's
Just
right. They're making
they're
money off
lending
of it.
them money. Yeah, they're lending them money temporarily for a couple hours while they feed it back in.
It's a beautiful racket, man.
Yeah. No, casinos scare the shit out of me for that reason. They're just the energy in a casino is kind of like evil. Like it's like, yeah, I could totally see getting addicted to this and
Bill
blowing.
Maher has one of my favorite jokes where he's like, "You want to he's like, you want to have great security when it comes to terrorism." He's like, hire the people that Vegas uses for
Mhm.
security. He says,
Mhm.
you can't even do math in your head without getting caught.
It's a great
They-
joke. Yep.
yeah. And
Literally. Yep. Card
yeah.
Yeah,
counting.
but he can't walk into a casino in Vegas because he still owes on a. They gave him a whatever the fuck a
Marker.
marker, and he still owes it. And he's like, dude, they'll see me as soon as I step in the door. I pop up on their recognition system, and they're on me.
And
Because
someone walked up to them.
I was there. He's like, I was all fucked up. He's like, oh, I'll go in there and see if I can gamble. He didn't even get through the double doors. He got in the first
Wow.
like, and they just elbowed him out.
Yep.
He's
Get the
done.
fuck out.
I had my blackjack teacher. When you go to blackjack school, you're just dealing blackjack all day, and you're learning the lingo. You're learning, how to communicate with the pit boss. You're learning the payouts. So the teacher, he's telling me one day, I'm dealing. He says, keep your eye on your chip tray because there's people good enough to take money right from under you.
Wow.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? We've all seen how close the chip tray is to the dealer. It's on the other side of the table. It's like, there's no way that can happen without me seeing it. I deal everybody their cards. I go around, hit stay, boom. I go to flip over my cards, and he put a thumbtack through my cards and the felt without me even seeing it
Wow. Really?
to prove that
To
he
prove
could
that he
do it.
could have got it. Yeah, he could grab it.
And I was like, how the hell did you do that? And he says, I wasn't always teaching blackjack.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
a lot of those dudes, so they can walk into a casino again, end
Yeah.
up having to work for the casino, right? So
Makes
No,
sense.
that makes total sense.
yeah.
Inside secrets.
Well, so Pat does the door trick. I go to bed. I'm was hammered. I remember. Wake up the next morning and just hung over, but we go to class, and I'm walking to class, and the class supervisor, an FBI agent who is assigned to Quantico, pulls me out of class as class is starting, or right before maybe. She says, "Oh, let me."
Before class even started, they grabbed.
Yeah, it's right before. I mean, she was up all night, excited at this opportunity. She
I
knew she
finally
had
got this
fucking
book
Pat.
out of my sights.
Yeah. So she pulls me aside and she says, I heard you guys weren't out last night. And I knew there was nothing wrong with that. I said, yeah, we did. We went out to celebrate. I passed my PT test. She goes, where'd you go? I said, I don't know, Georgetown. What places? I said, I don't know, a couple of places. I don't know the names of them. And she goes, well, what time did you get home? And I was like, I was drunk. I told her I was like, look, I was drinking. I was celebrating. I'm an adult. I didn't have curfew at that point. There's nothing wrong with that. And she goes, well, what time did you get in though? And I said, I have no idea because I was drunk and I didn't remember. And she goes, well, what do you think it was after, 9 p.m. I'll say? And I said, well, yeah, we left at like 8. I'll make it up. We left at 8 and she asked me like 9. I was like, yeah. And like you said, this is the hair on the arm. I'm like, yeah, it was definitely after 9 because we left at 8:30. Well, then, you went to dinner. Yeah. How long was dinner? About an hour. So that puts you at 10. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, so then, did you come home at 10? And I was like, well, no, we were just at dinner. Then we went to like a club. And she's like, oh, okay. And how long at the club for? And I was like, I don't know. She's like, estimated like 4 hours. I said, no, 2 hours. No, 1 hour. I was like, yeah, probably an hour. She's like, all right, this puts you at 11. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I was like, she's done this before.
Yeah.
So she gets me to admit that it was definitely after whatever time. It was 11. Was it 12? She gets me to admit that there's no way, unless we jumped into a time machine and fucking went back in time, that all the things we did could have had us back before, I'll say, midnight. she boxed me in so tight. And I was like, yeah. So I was like, but what's the problem? And she goes, all right, that's all I wanted to know. And she sends me back in the class. So I go sit in class and my brain's stewing like, what was that all about?
Oh yeah, she
I'm like,
just
well,
she just shook the hell out of you and
yeah.
sent you back into the world.
Yeah, and I'm like the snitch who gets pulled out by the warden, and now everybody's looking at me like Vinny was out in the hallway with the warden. I got like the snitch, the vibe from everybody, and everybody's looking at me. And then so Pat, when did she grab you then? Because I think I was the first, right?
Yeah. So here's the best part. At the time, we were studying interrogation techniques, and one of the things the FBI is very good at is by the time they sit you down and arrest you, they have everything they need to convict you. They're already done, right? And they do this by design so they don't have to go to trial. They just get you to fucking confess. But of course, me, not even thinking that they're using their own techniques on me, I get called in and she sits me down. I'm the last one. So they went through 2 other guys that also broke curfew because they were on the same with me. But I didn't know that. I didn't know they grabbed Vinny. I didn't know they grabbed anybody. So she asked me, and I just did the whole, I don't know, man. I was drunk. I don't know what time. She did the whole thing with me. I go, I don't know, but I know where she's going because I go, I don't know. I think we left IHOP right uptown, like maybe like 11:30. It's probably close, right on midnight. She's like, why didn't you sign out? I go, well, I just had them drop us off in the back because there's no parking, and we just came in the door, and I forgot to go all the way up front, and I was gonna do it in the morning. I just forgot. Class started. Blah blah. She's like, okay. Sends me off, and I'm like, that was too fucking easy.
Yeah.
So I go in the bathroom. It was a break in between classes. And our buddy's next to me. I'm washing hands. I'm all, hey, Lynchy, any chance you talk to Bransford? He's all, dude, does not even look at me. He's looking straight. He's all, yeah. I go, you tell her he got in after midnight. He's all, yeah, sorry, man. Sorry. And he leaves.
Oh.
So then we go to class, and I'm sitting in class just fucking sweating because I'm going, I'm fucking good. So I get up in the middle of class and I walk to her office.
Well, first you asked me. So you asked Frenchie, and then you come.
Didn't have a good enough answer to convince me.
No, you go, yo, did you talk to Bransford? And I was like, yeah, she pulled me out. And you go, what did you say? And I was like, I said we got in after curfew. And I looked at him, I'm like, what did you say? Like, there's no, I'm like, this is the FBI Academy. They have doors, cameras, they're all FBI agents. Like, I wasn't worried because I honestly believed everybody would have just fallen on the sword because as Pat said in the last part of this, the expression they drill in your head is lack of candor. What happened? Agents get fired for lack of candor. They don't get fired for the thing. They get fired for lying about the thing. And so they did drill that into our head early on. And I said, well, the worst that would happen if Pat missed curfew would be like some disciplinary action, but they probably couldn't fire him.
Keep in mind, I had already missed and been talked about.
Yes, I didn't know this. I didn't know that part of it.
I was a repeat offender of having too much fun in Quantico. So she had her sights on me and she set me up perfectly. So I walked in, I sat down in front of her and I go, Miss Bransford.
Well, Pat leaves class. Pat, not to cut you off. We're in the class. And I see Pat sweating behind me, and I see him all fidgety. And in the middle of a fucking lecture, he stands up and runs out. Nobody does that. This isn't college. This isn't high school. Nobody just stands up to change their tampon in the middle of, like, you'll sit there and bleed out before you be rude like that. Pat stands up and runs out of the class. And I realized at that moment, oh, fuck, Pat must have not said what happened because the only reason. Yes.
I mean, I knew the answer.
So Pat goes running out, and then go ahead, Pat.
So I go down, and she's still at her desk. I sit down, and she's fucking cool as a cucumber, sitting back like this. She's all, and I go, all right, we did not get in before midnight. It was probably close to it, but it was definitely after. And she's like, I know. I've already heard from everybody. She goes, what? Do you think that your friends would stick up for you? Do you think they would put their whole life online just for you? And I'm like, what the fuck is it all about me? There's fucking people out and it's all about me. I'm like, fuck you, lady. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be cool. I'm like, no, I didn't ask anybody to lie. She goes, I know. We got to him before you could talk to him. I go, so you thought I would go try and convince all my buddies to lie for me? I was like, no, they fucking save themselves, get away from the sinking ship that is Patrick Kirk. Fucking, I mean, by all means. And then she was like, at that point, she's all, well, we're gonna have to review this and set you aside. I go, what? I go, look. This is not real life here. And this I just broke down, just fucking unloaded on her. Keep in mind, I'm going through stuff at home. I was going through a separation. I have 2 kids at home. I had so much stress on me. I had a buddy help me make a house payment because I was making so little money that he literally brought a check over to my wife so we could make our fucking mortgage payment. So she caught me right at a time where I'm losing it. And I'm like, this fucking curfew is bullshit. And it's stupid all because I couldn't do enough push-ups. And I just start laying in her. She goes, really? Let me tell you why it's not bullshit, Patrick. I'm like, oh, fuck. Let me have it, lady. He's like, when you join the FBI and you're here, there are going to be rules. And I'm like, oh, please tell me how there's some type of rule when I'm in the FBI that has to do with getting home before midnight. And she has one. She goes, I'm such a dick. But she goes, what if you end up getting stationed in like Afghanistan? There's a curfew there because after 12, an American walking around, you could be snatched and grabbed or even shot. I go, Miss Bransford, if you told me I'm going to get shot if I leave after midnight, I'm probably going to fucking be back.
Right.
But that's not the case in the real world. Bars are open till 2. We drive safe. I mean, like,
it was Georgetown. I mean,
you're out doing shots. You're not getting shot.
Purely the same. But that was her argument, was that if you're willing to break this rule here, you could break it somewhere else. We could, put you in harm's way. And I was like, whatever. And then she tells me I'm going to go on to review. And that's when they have to do this whole thing where they interview all the instructors about me and see if I'm worthwhile to stay in the academy. And at that moment, I go, you know what? I'll just book my own fucking flight right now. She goes, that's not how it works. I go, I don't care. I'll fucking do it right now. She goes, nope, we're going to do this. So they assign someone to interview me and get all my details about why I have issues. Did you remember I went to see that counselor? So So I tell her all the stress I'm going through. She goes, well, why didn't you tell people? And I go, well, fuck, I'm not here to put my shit on other people. She's like, well, we do have counselors on staff that are former agents that are here as instructors that also double as counselors to help people like you or away from home. I go, perfect. I want one of those. She goes, well, it doesn't work like that. I go, I just fucking told you. She goes, no, you're just using it as an excuse now. Could you imagine today's world, someone telling?
No one would say that now. No, they couldn't say it now.
So I went to this counselor. He was a good dude. He actually was the dude that taught defensive driving, and he was going to loan me a car if I needed it, if I need to get off campus, go do shit. And I'm like, really, dude, that's not going to help me. Give me my own access to get off the base. I'm going to fucking miss curfew again. So I'm like, no, I don't need a car. It's fine. But he was cool. And then they interviewed him, and everybody they interviewed, all the instructors caught me in the lunchroom and all told me they got interviewed. He goes, dude, like the firearms guys were awesome. He's like, I stuck up for you. I was like, this fucking guy's a solid dude. He's a 100% shooter.
Awesome.
I never got less than a 90%, 96% on any test. I mean, I did nothing wrong in the whole thing, but that little fucking moment in time, within curfew, that burnt me pretty bad.
Oh, yeah.
So into what I call purgatory, where you're out of the class, you're still in Quantico, but I'm not doing shit. The class is moving forward without me, and I'm still fucking hanging around.
He's like a ghost. He's a fucking walking ghost, Shuli.
You're the guy. This happened. Yeah. He's the guy in Office Space where they put in the basement.
In the basement.
And he just wants a stapler.
I just didn't have a red stapler. That's the only difference.
Yeah, but he was like in his dorm room on the floor, but we would go to class, and then Pat was being sent to do other things, and we really didn't know a lot at that point because, of course, you didn't feel like you could ask. Also, at the same time that this was happening, a serious outbreak of staph infection broke out. Because of all the fucking crazy shit they got you doing on the mats and sweating on the mats, the common factor was everyone was getting sick from what we thought was the gym. And what we learned later on was that the cleaning staff at Quantico was using the same mops for the toilets as they were for cleaning the fucking mats. And so people were disappearing from our class and other classes mysteriously. There is no like, let me say goodbye at the end of like your Survivor challenge. They just disappear. And you're like, what happened to Steve? And you're like, I don't know. Like he's gone. And they're like, don't ask about Steve. And you're like, okay.
They're trying to keep it under wraps.
Meanwhile, like staph infection's going through, which is lethal. Wow. So we got staph infection breaking out. We're wondering what the hell's going on. I'm seeing people in class with, lesions and things. And Pat gets NARB, New Agent Review Board. That's what it's called when they take a student out and they actually, basically give him his due process before they fire him. And then all of a sudden, we're not talking to Pat much because we're completely on different schedules. And then we're like in Hogan's Alley, which is that fake town that they built. Yeah. And we're doing like firearms, like drills. You do drills for like arrest scenarios and stuff.
Right.
And I'm in, I think it was the movie theater. I'll never forget this. And we're like doing an arrest scenario. In the back, I hear like loud grinding and coughing. Like there's a human in the back, like a guy like Sloth from the Goonies that they've chained up in the back. I hear like a noise, and I go wander off and go look, and Pat's in the back. What were you doing? Like shredding classified documents in the fake movie theater in Hogan's Alley?
Yeah, so when they had me doing odd jobs because they can't have me just sitting around. So I was shredding documents, and then one day they found out I knew computers. So again, I was working out at Hogan's Alley, and there's a little area where they had some basic computer stuff where they did some of the video production for that awesome video you showed the first time. They did all that stuff there. And they found out I could work on Access databases and shit like that. So they finally got me doing computer stuff, which was fine. That was actually where I set up my first Gmail account. I still have email from that time where I was job hunting while I was sitting in there. But so I'm like, this is not going to go well. I already know. I need to fucking set some up.
Your Gmail looks like it's taken off. Let me sign up for one of these.
Yeah, but no, I had to do odd jobs. They moved me out of my room, so I was not on the floor with the class. They put me in a whole other tower. I was in my own room, but fucking no connection with anybody. I couldn't reach anybody, couldn't contact anybody. I was not supposed to go to the floor where the class was because
no, you came to my room one night.
Interviewing some of you guys about me too. They wouldn't want me to corrupt you, and
they didn't talk to us. At least they didn't talk to me about you, but they did. I remember you came to our room one night late, and you were like fired up, and you're like, I don't know, it was like week 4 of you being narbed in like total purgatory, and you're like, I ain't fucking quitting. I'm gonna, if they're gonna do it, I'm gonna, like, I'm gonna ride this out. Like, I'm gonna be here like for 20 years in Quantico's Hogan's Alley shredding documents till they force them to fire me because you're
doing the Costanza with
not fucking leaving. Not fucking leaving.
His fiance's parents about the Hamptons.
You're tripling down.
Yeah. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Let's go.
You want to get nuts? And I remember I was like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. This guy technically like got narbed 4 weeks ago and he's still here. And out of pure spite, you were just riding it out. So we go on to the worst part is you got pepper sprayed, Pat. You actually went through that.
Pepper spray. Oh, it was. I remember that was right around this time where they were discussing what they're going to do with me, and I still went through pepper spray class. And I remember Brance was out there, and she was so fucking happy to watch this go down. That bitch hated me. I'm like, why do you just so dislike people? You're so weird.
I like the idea of pepper spray class where it's like, all right, come in. And it's like, all right, you graduated. Here's your diploma. You're done.
You've learned how to handle your face being on fire and repeat.
That's Pat right there. I found that pic. That's Pat with the face full of pepper spray.
Just shooting everyone.
Yeah.
He just feels people around him.
That's 6'2", 220. I showed up there 6'2", 250. You can imagine that. I lost 30 pounds there. I should go back. I need to go back on that diet.
Oh yeah, I was like down to like 155 when I left there. I was just you do leave in the best shape of your life. You were like lean. You're like ready to run through walls when you leave that place.
Yeah, you're in bed by midnight.
Oh yeah, you're eating healthy. You're exercising constantly. You're hydrated. Like your urine is like crystal Pepsi. It's just nothing but clear shit coming out of your dick.
But yeah.
So Pat ends up then. So then, it was fucked up because then Pat ends up going through that NARB process. My 2 other friends who failed the PT test fail it again, so they get fired.
Wow.
So now it's just me and Dave, and like Pat's gone at this point. I think at this point you were gone. Like towards the when did you leave, Pat?
I left a week before graduation. They sent me back to they finished their review. They sent me back to the Sacramento field office. So I still FBI employee. They wanted me to be an analyst and shit like that. So I go, well, send me back to Sacramento while you guys figure this shit out, so I can at least be home with my family.
Yeah,
you don't need me here to do this shit.
You don't need shredding paper.
And that's what I did there. I went there and I fucking shredded paper. I fucking old case files.
This guy can shred paper. Let me tell you, he runs that shredder like nobody's business.
Yeah.
8 hours a day in a small room shredding paper in this big ass grinding machine that filled up these huge plastic bags that I would just fill them up, take in the dumpster 8 hours a day.
They're calling for Pat like Rivera from the bullpen. They're just gonna give me the shredder. Bring him out here.
Shredder.
We got a guy 6'2", but he can only do 29 push-ups, so he can shred paper now. But he did everything else great.
Yeah,
he his exams, great shot.
I don't even think I told you this, but when I went there, they had a guy doing the shredding because it's constant. every office file that's past a certain year, they shred it.
Yeah.
But the guy that was doing the shredding, she's like, hey, we have some other stuff for Freddie to do. That was his name. He comes out and I meet him. That's a good way to say this. Special needs. He's a special needs guy. So he's somebody's nephew.
So
that
a peer of yours.
And
now he's your peer.
Yeah.
No, I took his job. He got promoted, and I took his job. So now I'm.
He was the guy with the mops and the staph infection. That's what he got promoted to. And then they demoted him after that. Like,
Freddie's now come to tell me when to take my breaks. And I'm like, what the fuck is my life now?
Julie, on the staph infection, you want to hear how crazy this is?
I just picture Freddie with an office with a nameplate that says Freddie. Head of window licking.
And he has one employee, me.
The staph infection got so bad, Shuli, and just this is again kind of the things that open your eyes to a lot of the weirdness is that so the gym was closed the entire time after that staph infection broke out. We had to go to the Marine Corps gym to work out. And I'm like, this is kind of fucked up that I'm like at the premier law enforcement agency of the world and I don't have access to a gym. I went back to Quantico, like must have been 3-4 years later for something. I had something I needed analyzed in the lab and it needed to be done ASAP. So I drove it to Quantico and the lab was still fucking closed. And I went into the cafeteria and I sat with a bunch of new agents because now I'm looking at through the eyes of the actual agent. Like that was always, amazing. Like you make it through. And now I'm like, I'm going to go eat lunch in there because I want to look at what I was 3-4 years ago.
Sure.
And I find the table of students and they're talking about, random stuff. And I'm kind of taking it all in because it's awesome to hear people being like, oh my God, we have this tomorrow, that tomorrow. And I heard this and I heard that. And somehow the gym comes up and I walk over to the table and I'm like, yeah, the gym's been closed for way longer than that. And I was like, I tell my class number. We started having a conversation. The rumor going around was that they found aliens in the gym, and then the FBI closed down the gym for 4 years because it was the new Roswell. And I had to set them straight. I'm like, so you're close. It was staph infection from toilet water being spread on. You're kind of close. Nothing super secret. And then they found when they started to clean and renovate the gym, they found asbestos in the ceiling, and that caused it to be closed for like 4 years. And I'm like, wow. This is great that you don't have a gym in the FBI Academy for like 4 years straight.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, everything's soaked in feces. So
why not have
wouldn't be a bad time to maybe look into remodeling.
That's what they
did.
Do I know? That's exactly what it was. And then they found, they're like, we found the asbestos in the ceiling. So they closed that. So then Pat gets fired or leaves, doesn't get fired. My two other friends get sent back to their offices. So it's basically just me and my other dude. And we're like, totally bummed because our closest friends are now been left the academy. They were now talking, there were rumors about a lawsuit against the FBI at that point about failing so many people because of these push-ups. I mean, you got to think about it. Like you do everything great and you're 29 push-ups, not 30, and you're not qualified, but everything great in 30 means you're qualified. It's sort of an arbitrary distinction to be made.
But also what's the qualifications of the person qualifying your push-ups?
Right. If they got it in for you, they can just say 29 and there's no check on that. So in fact, they started implementing these chest boards after we left so that when you did a push-up, if your chest board went down and a ticker went off and showed that your chest went low enough, then that took the subjectivity out of it. And now there was an objective standard that you'd show and say, I did 30. I'm like, well, where the fuck was that when I was there? Because I had to not only make sure I could do more than 30 push-ups, I had to make sure that the guy tested me liked me. Because if he didn't like me, I knew he could just be like, oh, sorry.
Do you remember Thanksgiving? You remember so Thanksgiving rolls around. I'm still under the curfew thing. There's a bunch of us. I'm one of the few people in our class that Pat failed twice. So I have to wait for literally week 13 or 14 to do the final PT test. And they're like, if you didn't pass PT test, you got to stay here in Quantico for Thanksgiving. And I'm like,
oh, yeah, I remember that.
And you're going to have box lunches delivered to you. By the way, no staff is there. No one's there. There's no kitchen, nothing. They're going to have box lunches. And I'm like, best Thanksgiving ever. And everyone around me laughs. And later I found out Bransford was standing behind us.
You really are the Belushi of the FBI Academy.
So I petitioned to do, hey, if I pass a PT test, a test one, do I get to go? They're like, yeah, okay, we'll do a full PT test. If you pass, we'll let you go home for Thanksgiving. I passed it. Not only did I pass it, I did like 36 push-ups, like no problem. Passed it, flying colors. And they made a specific point to go, this doesn't count towards your passing your PT test. You still have to pass.
Even though you passed it, you didn't pass it.
But we'll let you go home for Thanksgiving. I'm like, oh, thank you so much, which more added to my chippiness and how much
Of course, I don't blame you, dude.
But, and then, of course, week 14, we went to go do, I did 29 and a half.
Imagine Shuli going through 14 weeks. It's 20-something weeks now. Imagine going through 14 weeks and still not knowing if you're going to graduate like 2 weeks before graduation because you failed the PT test twice for what you feel like are not legitimate reasons and very justifiably so. And then you get sent home like, you know, a week before graduation and you're like straight A student. Your qualifications are great. You know how to box, you know how to do jujitsu, but the fucking push-ups became this like boogie monster.
Let me tell you what it all comes down to. All right. And I've heard your guys' stories. And here's my assessment. The FBI Academy is literally like having a wife. No matter what you do, it's never good enough. It's never 100%. When they interact with you, it's because they know something to trip you up and to get you in trouble. It's the only communication they have. There's never a pat on the back. Good job. Nothing ever changes. It's a marriage. But that's the first thing that bothers me about it. The other thing is like, yeah, there's so much room there for people to have a personal agenda with somebody and really ruin your entire experience there, which sucks because maybe that is your calling, maybe that is where you are supposed to be and you can actually accomplish some good from it, but because this person has an ego and has some sort of problem with you for whatever reason, they can just take that entire wind right out of your sails, that passion from your heart, and just and make you not and just create that chip where Pat's like, yo, fuck you guys, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even need this shit anymore.
What was so great, you're so right, because I'll give you an example. The academy's a different world than the actual FBI. So when I go back to the field office, they're like, you couldn't get through it. What's going on? So I tell them what's going on. They're like, what the fuck are they doing out there? We just wanted you to come back to work. So the lady I was going to be working for, I was going to be going to cybercrime in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. She calls me up at the Sacramento office. She goes, what happened? I heard you're out of the academy. I go, yeah. So I give her the whole story. She goes, oh no. So she starts making phone calls. Next thing you know, I'm being interviewed by our SAC, our special agent in charge for Sacramento. What happened out there? I give them all the list of all the shit I went through. And I was 100% honest. I said what I did wrong, what they did wrong, what I feel.
For once, Pat's telling the truth. Go ahead.
Once, because I was hoping someone's going to get their ass chewed. So he goes, thank you very much. My roommate, when I was in the academy, now is on the HR side of the FBI Academy. So he's boys with him. He's like, write this up. And he literally interviewed me like he would. And we wrote it all up and sent it to him. 3 weeks later, I find out he leaves. He gets a promotion from the SAC. He now was running the academy. He went and ran the FBI Academy from Sacramento.
Oh, I didn't know that.
All the information. So when our boys went back, we had two buddies that went back to the whole thing again. He was running the academy, and they're like, dude, this is a completely different academy. And I go, yeah, because
you're
welcome. Because
all the people that failed because of push-ups threatened a lawsuit. One of them actually sued in the end and won. But there was a threat of a lawsuit, and so they put a class back together with all the misfit toys, as we called them, and so they went back. So I have two friends that had to do the academy twice, and had to act like it was the first time, like to go back and like get pepper sprayed again and get punched and choked.
I was gonna say that's like having a place fuck up your hair, and then they're like, "We'll do it for free the next time."
Yeah.
Why am I?
And they did
back?
it. No, but they did it, and all these guys went through, and they changed over the way they judged the push-ups and all that other stuff, and they cleared it. And then in the field, what changed was that because I was an agent and I'm hearing these stories, and what ends up happening is we get an email from Director Mueller one day that says there's going to be, in addition to our firearms qualifications, you're going to have like an annual or biannual, I forget, physical fitness examination. And I'm like, okay, we never had that before. And then I started calling people and talking to a legal counsel for the Bureau. And I was like, what's the deal? And they're like, well, bottom line is a kid got kicked out of the academy because he couldn't do enough push-ups. He sued. And his argument was, how important can push-ups be if the only time you have to do this test is in Quantico and they never test you again? It just makes sense, right? If firearms, I had to qualify 4 times a year for firearms. Most FBI agents are phenomenal shots, right? Every time you go qualify.
Driving, I imagine you have to test for, you know, that, and it's 100% such a great argument.
And so the judge agreed and said there's no connection between how this can be beneficial for an agent if you're not testing it ever again, and an agent could be there for 25 years later. So what's the solution? You have 2 choices. You get rid of the physical fitness exam, which I agree. You can't do that because then you end up, no offense, but like other police departments, you know, not exactly.
Then you got the NYPD. I get it. I'll say it.
Right. But if you don't do that, then you got to implement it back in the field. So like every agent out there is like, I haven't taken a PT test in fucking 20 years. And now I got to go out and like, you know, run track. Like,
dude, I remember like my first week or 2 in New York and being outside in Midtown and like smoking a cigarette. And I remember seeing a cop drive by, arm on the window, smoking a cigarette. And I'm like, I've never seen a cop smoking a cigarette in uniform. And this guy was 400 pounds. The last thing he needed was a cigarette. And I'm like,
I will say that, that I only knew like a couple of overweight agents my entire career. But so that lawsuit happened. And then, and then Pat was gone. And, you know, I had an incident in, you know, again, I learned early on that sense of humor is not something that is valued at the Bureau. So we have this training scenario where you're shooting your gun. At the time, it was one of the most sophisticated interactive. Now VR could do basically the same thing, but you got a gun hooked up to a hose, virtual reality kind of set up with screens, and they put you at an arrest scenario. And my partner gets shot in the arrest scenario. Like I'm like his partner, and he gets shot. And the instructor says to me, okay, your partner's down. He just took like 2 to the fucking face. What do you do now? And of course, what do you immediately do when your pressure's on? You go to your comfort zone, which is humor. So I said, start planning a funeral, I guess.
See, that's good. I thought what I would have done, I would have dropped to my knees and went, no. I would have let out one of those.
Well, they did not go over well. I heard an audible ooh.
They all bailed on you.
They bailed on me like a bad crowd. And I
wanted to laugh, but I knew that was not these are firearms guys. They're intense.
Dude, you know when Pat knows you're out. When Pat
fucking throws me under the bus, and I couldn't blame him. And the instructor who had been shot and stabbed like 8 times in his career did not think that was funny. And he said, that is exactly not the fucking answer I wanted to hear. And then he made a whole lecture as I stood there in front of the class like a buffoon, and just fucking hammered me.
Just demolished Vinny in front of everybody.
I just stood there like it was like somebody you just fucking, you know, point out a tiny dick in front of the class for 30 minutes.
Meanwhile, am I the asshole for saying, how about we get a guy who teaches the class that's never been shot? How about we do that? Is that too much to ask for?
I want the guy who's made it through 30 years without so much as a paper cut. I want to hear from
what are you here to teach us? How to do it the wrong way, dude? Like
when you get stabbed, you want to lean into it.
I'd be like, how many times were you stabbed, dude? I'm gonna listen to the janitor before I listen to you, bro.
And the lady who had it in for Pat actually after the class pulled me aside, and she's like, you know, I thought differently of you, and I'm really disappointed. And I knew at that point I was like, oh no, I'm marked for death now. I'm totally marked for fucking
death. That was early on. I skyrocketed past you after that. I will say one thing. Do you remember? This sticks out like it happened yesterday. One of the funniest things ever said in class, it wasn't by either of us, and it caught me off guard, was when the instructor was talking about like crime scene stuff. And he's like, you know, you don't know what you're going to, he's kind of an intense instructor. You don't know what you're going to get. You could walk into a scene. There's a person there with his head chopped off, an umbrella shoved up your ass, and they're up their ass. And they're like, what are you going to, who did this? And I think it was Leon goes, the penguin.
That's a good one.
The instructor just walked in. There's only like 4 of us laughing because we had sense of humor, but man, everybody else was like, And I was like, that was fucking pretty funny. And it was so quick-witted. I was like, did he set you up for that joke? He was like on it. It was so funny.
Let me tell you one thing I learned. Anytime you have echo and a little bit of reverb, any response is funny. You can say, "What do you do?" Check the weather. You know, then you do that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, in any case, that's I hope that was a little bit of insight into what the Quantico is like, a little bit behind the curtains. There's definitely more to this, but I think we kept it just PG-13 enough, Pat, to keep you alive and me alive and employed without getting suicided. But yeah, Shuli, any questions on any of that? I know we covered a ton of ground the last couple of days.
Yeah, no, I think I mean it's fascinating from an outsider's point of view to see, you know, it's like you hear about the SEAL training stuff and all these other entities and how they do their thing, but the FBI is a place you don't really hear a lot about, you know. So for me it's fascinating to get to really find out that like the douchiness of corporate America is also in that, you know, in our law enforcement agencies where it's like you said, these guys, you know, they fail you so they can prove that they're not wasting money having 15 people employed to scream at you, "You're a fat piece of shit," and get your legs up. And it's
Yep.
like, so yeah, everybody. I always said, man, one thing I learned about corporate America is that they love to see people pedal. It doesn't matter if there's a chain on the bike. They
Yeah,
just
no,
want to
no,
see
yeah,
people pet
yeah,
everybody. I'll send you an email on that. I'll CC you on that. I'll do it. It's all bullshit. It's like,
yeah.
meanwhile, you miss the point of it all.
Point.
You miss you end up losing people that would have not treated it as a
Oh
job
yeah,
and definitely not looked at it as a job. When you have a dream or a passion for something and you get a chance to do that, that's not work to you. That's not a job. You don't ever sit there and go, this fucking blows. It's not the case. You give it your all every minute of every day. It's every thought you have. And that's the way it should be when you're passionate
yeah.
about
Those are the
something.
people you want for any
Those are the people you
profession.
want.
And when I got to New York, and you know, it's another story. But when I got to New York and kind of fulfilled the dream, I got assigned to an Italian organized crime squad, which was like my. I mean, you got to remember, I was reading Donnie Brasco's book in 1995, and now it's 2004. 10 years later, 2005, and I'm assigned to the Colombo Squad, the most violent La Cosa Nostra family out there. And it's like you pinch yourself, going, "Wow, I remember reading this book before I went to bed in high school, and here I am."
Yeah.
So you know,
How many other porn producers can say they did
not
that?
a lot.
Huh?
No,
Not
not
a
a lot.
lot.
Not a lot.
Congrats, Vinny.
Yeah,
Congrats.
I was
Quite
one of
career
the
spread
first.
he's got there.
In the next episode, we're really going to deep dive into your porn issues. I think that's a whole thing that Quantico missed personally.
Yeah, probably. Or I'm just more candid about it than
I
most. But
hear
we'll
you.
have a discussion on that. I'm definitely more candid about it than most. But yeah, man. Any final thoughts, Pat, before we wrap it up? I know we went long, and Chuli's got to go too. But
No,
any final
man,
thoughts, Pat?
I'm always thrilled to tell this story of my failure. It's amazing. It's so much fun.
I love that you're able to tell it, and
Well,
you
it's
know,
real life. I mean, I tell
it
my
is.
kids the story. I mean, when they got older, I told them what I did and how I did it, and I use it as a life lesson on at the end, no matter what the result, the truth always wins. And if you try to go around it and it fucks you in the ass as it did me, you have no one to blame but you. You had control of everything, which I did. Had I sat there and said, yeah, I missed it for the fourth time, who knows? She might have slapped me on the wrist and said, one more fucking time, you're done.
Yeah.
Change it today. But although with my personality, I probably wouldn't be. But
it all happens for a reason, dude. Everything happens for a reason.
It does. And
how I feel.
Pat, and this is what we've talked about. And again, another conversation. But you know, you had the disadvantage, and I didn't realize this as much, is that you had kids. I was just married, so I had just been married, and it sucked leaving my new wife. But I didn't have kids, and that is such a difference in everything psychologically to go into the academy, and that's why I encourage people who are looking at any kind of schooling or anything challenging like this is do it when you don't have kids, because surely you know the deal. Kids change everything. I mean, you don't have the luxury of being selfish anymore when you have kids. And so for all I know, it's very possible I would have stumbled in the way that you did, having gone through the academy had I had the two kids. And I kind of just there but not for the grace of God, right? The expression goes, it's like I'm fully aware that for every person I look at that has a failure or they're defective in some way, that I could easily have done the same thing had things not been lined up in a certain way. And I'm not taking away from personal responsibility and making the right decisions. I'm just saying that sometimes things line up in a bad way. And there's a lot more to your story about your family issues at the time and your first wife that played heavily into this, that I think broke you and caused you to make some honestly shitty decisions that I know later on in life now you wouldn't have made. But that's part of this experience, is you recognize that now.
Oh yeah, if I had a happy, and I'm very happy now in my life,
Yeah.
and I'm like, every decision I make now is all about making sure I don't fuck up what I have today. Back then, I didn't give a shit. I was like, my life was in a fucking spin, and I'm 2,000 miles away. No one, not even the FBI, was going to scare me straight at that point. So
no,
I was.
No.
I mean, I look back and it makes me laugh that I'm telling the FBI to fuck off at some point, and it's just so stupid. But I didn't care. I mean,
I know
things that are way more important were already fucked up that I had to square away. So getting home was more important to me.
Hey, look at you. You and Randy Weaver both told the FBI to fuck off. Good for you guys. You're in good company.
Thanks for putting me in that.
All right. Well, thank you guys, both of you guys, for being on, man. I can't thank you enough. It was this is going to be the first official episode for the Vinny Proof of Work podcast, and I couldn't have picked two better people to join me for this conversation. Hope you guys enjoyed it out there, and hope you guys tune in and listen again. Take care, everybody.